Hey, everybody. It's the 27th of February, 2025. This is Gimbalabs Live Open Spaces. We get together on Thursdays at 14:30 UTC to talk about what we're doing and what we're going to do next. Now, it's the 27th of February. It's the last Thursday of the month. And what we usually do on the last Thursday is we take a look at the work in progress. So I'm going to share screen in just a second. Here we go. Did that work? Am I sharing Notion?
Uh,
No. Am I? No, now I'm not.
Not
Uh,
yet.
Yeah,
All right.
they were. No,
Notion.
they
you
were.
were
They were.
sharing.
They
All right.
were side by side. Yeah, you had them
N-
up. Now it's
Now I
just
got
me.
it.
Looks good. Okay. So, and I'll zoom in, of course, but let me grab for you the link. So this is the public link for anybody who needs it. And sorry, and now I'm just finding my Zoom buttons. Public link to this board. And we've got the editable link here. And just I like we usually do, just a quick high level overview. Let me zoom in a little bit, collapse these categories, right? What do we have, right? Well, we got a list of projects, and projects can be in a few different states. They could be in the proposal state where you're just starting to put together an idea about something you want to work on. They could be in the planning stage, and there's some overlap between proposals and planning. We could talk about that more next week as we look at some new work that we might do. Backlog, this is where we put projects that might be interesting to work on in the future, but there's really no availability for anybody to drive that work forward right now. I think Cardano Go PBL actually recently returned at least to the planning phase. Mix facilitated the first ever All Things Go session yesterday. We had a nice turnout, and he's going to continue to facilitate that one. But one outcome of those sessions is that we're going to be able to think about the Cardano Go PBL course. We've got proposals that are ready to be approved by the community. And this is how we usually spend the bulk of our meetings when there are proposals to consent to. But on the last Thursday of every month, this takes a back seat to looking at our work in progress. And this is really where we're going to focus for today. What's neat about this list is that there's a few different projects, many of which actually have real funding attached to them. And so one of my goals today is to do what we typically do, just have a chance to run through this list. If you are the owner or the source of one of these projects, this is an opportunity to share whatever you want. I think we've done a really good job not making this feel like just an accountability space where we just have to answer to each other about the work, but really as a chance to, bring whatever updates you think are relevant and feel good to share. And if you're blocked by anything or if you need help getting things done, this is a really nice chance to do that. But then in addition to those updates, which we'll start in just a moment, when after we go through that list, we recognize that a lot of these projects have funding. And in most cases, those funds have not yet been distributed. We've been waiting for Andamio to be live on mainnet. Well, it's live now and it works. And actually, Steve was the first person to ever get rewarded via Andamio. We actually closed out this project the other day, and we are ready to add the rest of these projects there. We'll talk about the details, and we'll also take a look at the concept of prerequisites. What does somebody have to do first in order to be able to um, contribute to a project in a formal way that's registered on chain? So that's the goal. The agenda for today is to do first a traditional review of these. We'll just go down the list and see how everybody's doing. Then to explore the concept of prerequisites and what this will look like in Andamio. And then when we're ready to start moving these funds into actual Andamio treasuries. And I think we'll have time to do all of that today. Now, before we went live, Scott, you mentioned that you wanted to maybe jump into a breakout room to work on some proposals that are in progress. That's still fine. So what I'll do before we continue is if anybody wants a breakout room, let's just make sure that a couple of those are open. You don't have to use them. But here. So now there's two breakout rooms. If anybody wants to use those for any reason, feel free. But here in the main room, we're going to be doing that last Thursday of the month thing that I just described. Any questions on what's about to happen? All right. Well, what if we start down here? Because this one, I think we get to celebrate that sending Steve to DREP debate is actually done. But Steve, do you have any updates to share on that one now that the trip has been made and the funds have been dispersed? Any closeout thoughts on this guy?
Um, Governance is work.
Mm.
That's, you know, I think we have no idea what's about to happen. Like I've been in a lot of conversations in the last week, Monday and Tuesday, intensively, in the aftermath of Charles's castigation of Intersect Saturday evening, which made them all, suddenly everybody had different priorities, at Intersect. And we'll see how that settles out. But, it really could be that there's going to be steady decisions to make as a DREP. So I do think that we need quality time with one another to talk about that, um, because I think it's tricky because everybody's busy, right? And I mean, if we're going to vote all the time, we need to find a way to either share learning about the shit that's voting. I think we need to find a way what's going to satisfy us in terms of feeling collectively competent enough to vote on these things, right? Otherwise, it'll just be we're going to trust this guy to tell us how to vote, and I just think that's hazardous.
So key takeaways, governance is real work, and there's a new proposal forming in Steve's head that will find its way to the page, and and we can bring that to a future meeting where we figure out how to create the time for a requisite set of decision makers. Thanks for representing here, and glad you had the chance to go.
No, it was great. It was fun. It's great to meet Q. It
Yeah.
was,
Geez, after how many years?
yeah, 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 it was
Oh, in the
crazy.
flesh,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
real
yeah.
Q. Oh my goodness.
His wife and child and his mother-in-law. It was fun.
It's awesome.
Amazing. Amazing. Did anything surprise you, or was it pretty much meeting expectations?
I was surprised by the event itself. I thought it was really empty. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
they got big names there, and it was like nobody really said anything significant. So like that, like you want to be thought, you want your thoughts to be provoked at things like this, and the thoughts that were provoked in me were, why couldn't they have said something more substantive about anything, anything?
Mhm.
That was my thought, but you know. At the same time, it's hugely important. Like I mean, I got to spend an entire evening with Sam Leathers, and he was, sharing. Like that was my first time to sit down with somebody from Input Output and really, hear some shit. And so like these things are always, and I'm sure, I know James knows from the events that he's gone to. I mean, it's hugely impactful to be at one of these things, uh, if only because of the relationship strengthening or creation that you have. with the people who are also there. But it's disappointing to me the talking pretty things without saying anything that regularly happens about these governance processes. It's really it's tough to be polite.
I was just sharing my opinion with the Andamio team about, us trying to be a a generally low bullshit organization. And that's a really hard goal to achieve. It's an easy thing to say, but it that takes work. Similar work to the kind of governance, right? Well, thanks again for attending. You can slam whatever emoji you want, but this one's done, and you'll get to see on Andamio what it looks like that this thing is done when we jump to there in a few minutes. Very
It
exciting.
really, really worked. I actually got the
Works.
ADA, and I still have most of it.
And we make no claims for what you're going to do with those tokens after you are rewarded. That's not in the scope of Andamio's charter, nor of Gimbalabs. But yeah, really exciting that we have this tool at our disposal now. So yeah, let's just take it from the top of this list. Just going from the top. When it gets to one where you are the owner, feel free to jump in. So I see first on the list, F12, sustain and maintain. Harsha,
So yeah,
what do you say?
that's pretty much done. Just like one small roadblock was that the first milestone, which was already approved, kind of got deleted uh, from my email, like the drive. So I just had to resubmit it, but it's all done now, and anytime now we should be getting the final payment, and we can close it out.
Thanks. Thanks, Harsha. And anybody who hasn't seen the closeout video for that, did you post that on the main Discord or was that only in the admin channel?
It's only in the admin channel.
Could yeah, share that. That's
Yeah,
it's
yeah, I'll do
cool.
that. I'll do that. Yeah.
And I'll post it here in the Notion as well.
Thanks. Perfect. Yeah, closeout video in here that we can be able to see. Amazing. Scott, what do you think?
Um, well, I'm not criticizing the proposal, but the proposal on here, I noticed that there's no budget allocated. Is that because the budget's not coming from Gimbal Labs?
Great question. So this one was actually the source of this budget and this budget, for example, right here. And then of also of the which spaces one, this guy. So yeah, so this we we can probably get better at how we create these systems, right? But as we built up this notion, this proposal was going through, and we do need probably a way to maybe we need an in column and an out column, right? So this was like an inflow, and these are the outflows that would balance that out.
UTXOs.
Should I just add that column right now, just so we have it for the future?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Um, so this is going to be
And if I'm going to look up the idea scale and Project Catalyst, like because these are live funded Project Catalyst things, and so to get a better because the framework here in Notion is not filled in. Uh, Here it is. They're right here. Here are the milestones. They're just farther down. Is it? But anyway, when there is an idea scale project attached, we just definitely want to make sure that they're connected. Um,
yeah.
or Fund 12 proposal sustain and maintain. I think that's what this one is. Yeah.
I don't remember how much came in for this one. Was this 100K?
Yeah,
That
yeah, that is
one,
all
yeah.
sustain and maintain are 100K.
And 70K have been distributed. So I guess
So
they're waiting
far.
on the final one.
So there's more
Yeah.
detail, right? We could have like this is the total. There's more details we can add to the metadata here. Personally, I'm okay with taking this kind of emergent approach where we build it as we go. But I think this is a nice addition for today. And this is historically, that's what we've done on these last Thursdays of the month is we've kind of fleshed out and added properties as we go. So that's a nice one to add. So this one brought 100,000 in. We spent funds from that. And we still have a whole bunch of ADA in the Gimbalabs wallet that's going to now move into different Andamio project treasuries. And so there's some balance of this that's still unused. Nice. Well, so this one we'll leave it in progress for now because we're waiting for that final payment, but for all intents and purposes, it's done, right? We'll just
I
wait
think so, yeah.
for final
Harsha.
payment. Yeah. Let's leave it in progress and then we can close it out to celebrate getting that final payment in. All right, next one. Same owners. What do you guys have to say
That
about
sounds
Asteria?
so Asteria is going along pretty well. If you don't know what Asteria is, um, this is it's kind of an interesting project. I just asked ChatGPT to summarize it. Came up with a pretty good
After
plan.
working all these days, you're still asking ChatGPT to summarize.
Well, it's just, it's true. I've I'm using it as a crutch. It's true. But the Asteria project aims to build a new front end for the Asteria game, which is a funded Project Catalyst project from TX Pipe. The TX Pipe crew created this game that was meant to teach the UTXO model. Um, and and what we wanted to do was refactor it with the T3 stack, which is Mesh. I mean, which is Next.js and a couple of other things like Tailwind CSS and some other modern front end stuff, along with Mesh, the Cardano front end interface. Uh, and basically what it would do would be to create a learning pathway. So what we're kind of the Hansel and Gretel, which is a fairy tale from Northern Europe, where two little kids get go on a walk, but they leave some breadcrumbs behind, all kinds of trouble with like a nasty crow and an old lady witch who tries to stuff them in the oven. But anyway, the idea is making a pathway for the others to follow, or for us to follow if we get lost. And then it would become a way to contribute and learn how to build on Cardano. So basically that is, and we've got a couple of phases, are actually three phases. We're in the first phase, sort of switching into the second phase. Now, first phase being sort of research and kind of getting our systems together. Second phase meaning doing the actual building part. The people on the team are myself, Harsha, Andrew, and Emmanuel, with James as a mentor or sort of a guide in this. And we've been meeting periodically, generally on Fridays and periodically through the week. Harsha and I meeting, or several of us meeting, sort of an ad hoc fashion, and we just work through the project. Uh, we're keeping notes on a GitHub repo, and yeah, we do. There are some lockers, etc., but I'll throw it over to Harsha or Andrew if you want to fill in any gaps that I've missed, or what kind of things we might want to bring up to the whole group.
Yeah, so there are some pretty interesting things that I've been observing because the four of us have been, even though we are working towards the same goal, we have all been like working with separate things. For example, Emmanuel has been working with a little bit of mesh and all of that. Newman has been trying to create a mental model of the whole thing and working on Figma, I think. I've been working on a little bit of deployment of the smart contracts that Asteria created, like an instance. And I think Andrew is also working on creating an instance. So that's where we are all at. And eventually, I hope we'll converge and start working together. Yeah.
For instance, I'm sharing my screen now. This is the Figma that I'm working through, or this is a whiteboard that sort of explains. It's basically how I'm trying to create a mental model of all of these different um, parts of this game. Basically, comes from this document, which is on the Asteria GitHub, and I'm going to try to bring up their front end to it. And just so that you guys understand what we're doing, etc. Andrew, do you want to pipe in?
Yeah, I can go. I'll just continue from what Harsha was saying. I guess as part of the research, we want to be able to play the game. But I think that the what we've learned is if we're going to be creating our own front end version of it, we need to create our own instance of the game. And probably the biggest technical challenge of it is um, deploying the actual game on chain. Um, there's quite a few transactions to do with deployment of validators, applying parameters to the validators. And we're all in some sort of stage with that, doing our own little bits on it, working on it. Yeah, in terms of blockers, we're probably at a stage where we need a little bit of help with it. The guys had a meeting yesterday, but I couldn't attend, so I'm not sure if that's gone any further. But yeah, no, we're all having fun. We're definitely learning. But yeah, I think we're at quite a technical point at the moment.
Yeah, and I'll pick it up from there to sort of get into our blockers. The biggest blocker for me is not being able to play the game. If we go back to the notion that was definitely a part of our of that first phase was to be able to play the game, and we just not haven't had it. It's a bit like trying to modify a game without ever actually seeing it go off. And so that's been difficult and the number one blocker. Um, I think it's down in here. Uh, so, but I think that can be fixed. I think that can be fixed pretty well. We One of the goals as part of that first phase in the research was to get involved with the discords and meet people from the other side. And actually, Manuel, who's not here, I can sort of fill in for him. He's been doing like a lot of incredible work connecting with people from the other communities. And I think he was on the mesh. Is either in
He
the
was on
mesh
both mesh and transaction pipe. Yeah.
and yeah, and transaction pipe. Yeah, so he's been doing really great work for Gimbalabs and representing us super well. This is another sort of outcome and benefit from it. Yeah. Yeah, let me post that in there. But anyway, I don't want to take up too much time, but just know, this thing is going pretty well. Here at the end of February, I think we're on track. We do need to get the game being played, and then I think our questions will be more uh, focused, and we can all get back on somewhat the same page. It is a benefit because we are all sort of working in our own threads, but so yeah.
Amazing. And yeah, that we can make that a top priority if there's technical blockers right after this call.
Yeah, let's do it.
Anybody got any questions about that one?
Oh yeah, I would love for you all to play it. Is anybody interested in playing it? Or does anybody have any questions about like what it
Can't
what it actually
wait.
is? Or
Cannot wait.
I
That's
do think that the insight is that a game can teach you a mental model,
yeah.
and the UTXO model is a little different than the account model. Like, it's much more like a cash transaction where you break a 20 and you get change back, and where does the change go? But it's different than the account model, which is sort of like a bank account where you've got like a registry and et cetera. Um, so I really believe in the big picture of this project, because I feel like that's how we're gonna teach people to think in this new and special way that will then have just a watershed of benefits, yeah.
I fully agree with that. And it's like it on the surface level, it's like why are we talking about a game right now? Isn't governance going online? Isn't that so important? But the simple fact is one of the crucial design patterns of Cardano that facilitates the kind of decentralization that is the foundation for the kind of governance that we're really talking about is that of this headless dApp, right? The
Yeah,
TX Pipe team built a set of on-chain validators. They open sourced the code so that anybody can grab those validators and create their own instances that they can own. And then they can create a front end of their choosing to work with those validators. Where will this pattern continue? Well, one example is very relevant to the Andamio team right now. We built a set of on-chain validators and we built a website at andamio.io where people can interact with those validators. And then we got this partnership with the FC Barcelona Football Club, and they want their own instance of Andamio, essentially. And so, this concept that we can use everything we've built already to create a custom solution for them, that's exactly what you guys are learning how to do as you work on our own Gimbalabs instance of the Asteria program. And why does that matter beyond? Well, any of the governance infrastructure we have the opportunity to start building new tools for interacting with that, right? Understand, well, how does governance fit into a UTXO? That's part of the technical skill we need more people to have in order to build the tooling that's going to facilitate some of the solutions that we can imagine right now, but that haven't yet been built. And so I'm really grateful to you guys for building up the expertise, hopefully building an on-ramp where other people can build up this expertise because it starts with a game, right? But it leads to so much more than that. And I'm really excited for where you guys are going. Keep in mind as well that we've learned a lot about endpoints and script purposes in the Aiken code, and we're pretty well familiar with spending and minting endpoints, right? But there's entire script purposes that relate to delegation and governance. And that's going to be another thing that's much easier to explore after this project. So thanks. No funds have been distributed for this project yet, right?
that is correct.
That's
Cool.
right. Yeah.
So we want all of these to go into a project treasury for Asteria and then put you guys in charge of it to decide how those get distributed. And hopefully we do
Excellent.
that today. Um, Similar project that's right, distributing ownership of resources and kind of taking some work that happened in the past, bringing it into the future and building up how we take care of it right here. Community governed maintenance of Plutus PBL. I brought this proposal, and Andrew, along with Caesar, Lawrence, and Monique, have really been running with it for the last few months. And it's really impressive. People can see for themselves what the conversations are like in the Discord channel for that one. But Andrew, would you share any updates on that one?
Sorry, yeah, I was muted. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, we're going really well. I guess I'll go over it from maybe a bit of a KPI point of view. So we broke the whole project down into individual tasks, which, oh, yeah, listed there. So there's about 60 on there, which includes the 40 lessons and introductions and assignments. So of that 60, uh, they are all in some state of in progress or done, except for 9. So we're cracking along really well. I think it's either 21 or 22 are done in that green column on the right. And yeah, it's progressing really well. That there's I think the when the initial proposition of that'd be 5 team members plus mentors. Well, there's actually only 4 of us. So there's a bit of budget left over, but something that wasn't quite in scope with what we were going to be doing with the videos. Now we have redone some of the videos, but it's a lot of work. So it might be a case at the end where maybe some more video work gets redone and we use some of the budget for that. We're not sure on the whole team isn't sure on the process for that yet either, but we have been doing a few videos. But no, on the most part, what the scope is the lesson content that's on Andamio. We've been updating that. The code examples on Andamio, the code examples that we find on GitHub because we use a lot of repos within the Gimbalabs GitHub. Also, there's code that needs updating, so like the Plutus PBL.io site, Aiken examples, validators. So yeah, there's a whole yeah, there's a whole lot of work going into it. So yeah, it's going really well.
Awesome. It's really awesome. Um, this this is how an MBO can function. Anybody who's looking for ideas for how to get an MBO to work, this is grassroots, right? We did this process. We got this proposal right here approved. Hinson and I, as early authors of some work, wanted to hand this off and build ownership across a community. And it's just amazing what y'all are doing. Andrew, thank you. And everybody else on this team deserves that thanks as well. But then look, we drill down, right? We go straight from the proposal to the work. And each of these, right, is a task. And each of them, a lot of them, if you click through, you can see that there's individual conversations, there's subtasks here. So this also helps us just see why are we using Notion for this? Well, because it integrates the governance process that we're using right here of deciding to do work with then the actual implementation. And I think this is such a beautiful case study that you all have created. I said this at the beginning of the project, but want to reiterate, is the outcome of this project, updating the course a good thing? Of course it is. We're so excited to have an up-to-date version of PPBL. But even more than that, just the fact that y'all are developing leadership skills, working together, and creating a model that I think we can follow into the future is a really big deal. So yeah, thanks. Great stuff. The budget for this one was 28,000 ADA. 8,000 has been distributed so far to the 4 people working on that team, 2,000 each. And like Andrew said, the original thought was maybe there would be 5 people working. There's 4, but I think those 4 people are doing the work of 5. So we'll leave it up to you all to decide how to allocate those other 20,000 ADA amongst each other. And we'll also set up a project for that one. Cool. Marlowe PBL, Aiken PBL are next on the list. These were both Fund 12 Catalyst proposals. Hinson and I have been delivering Aiken PBL. Marlowe PBL has been a little bit blocked by the state of Marlowe itself. But Sebastian, who just arrived, has been working on refactoring the milestones for that proposal so that we can jump into it soon. Seb, do you want to share any updates on the Marlowe project?
Yeah, hi guys. Our thinking, can you hear me?
You're a little muffled.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Good enough.
Oh, sorry, man. I mean, on the street. Okay. Vivian, maybe you can comment some little about our plan to distribute this project based on an instance in the same way we are doing it with the PDF. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Seb. Yeah, so wait, is somebody? I'm sorry. I think somebody's trying to get into the meeting right now. Yeah, okay. Sorry. Um, yeah, so I think one of the projects that's actually most relevant to the way this one's working right now is the Cardano Go PBL work. And so I think the work we're doing at All Things Go is actually going to inform the delivery of Marlow. Of course, the Cardano Go ecosystem is really well supported. There's a lot of people working on it full time. Blink Labs is championing all of that. TX Pipe dedicates resources, and there's individual developers like Zata who started the Apollo repo. But what these two things have in common is that we're using a live Gimbalabs session to think about the things that people need to learn. And then we're building a course out of those conversations. And then we're using that course to drive further development. So in the Go example, the Apollo library still has a few steps ahead of it before it's production grade. Um, and it needs some contributors helping out, making sure that it does get to that state. And where do those contributors come from? Well, obviously, Blink Labs people or Mix or Nelson can make contributions, and they have. But ideally, we would also train up a new set of contributors. And Blink Labs is working on that right now. So that's the process we're going to see there. With Marlowe, it's a similar thing, but a little more difficult. Marlowe has very sparse support right now. And what they're trying to do is kind of rebrand what Marlowe is in the first place, while also getting the kind of community support that's going to help drive it forward. So what we're hoping to do here is take what they've built so far, build what course material can be built so far so that people can understand what Marlowe now is, but then also to expose to anybody learning the future roadmap of Marlowe so that they can jump in and participate in that. We'll see if it all works, but Seb did the work of getting reapproval for some of the milestones so that we can address the project that way. And we'll keep everybody posted on that. It's a little bit on hold right now, but we're going to start to have some time to work on that and maybe even create a space sometime in the next month or two. Aiken PBL is just driving forward. The course has been delivered. Jingles and Hinson will be giving a really interesting lecture on best practices in Cardano development. And Hinson has devised a few bad examples of Aiken code that he's really excited to show people, things not to do when you're writing a smart contract. So that's going to be coming up over the next 2 weeks. And then we're going to keep the open sessions going for that one. Just so people can come in, ask questions as they're working through the course. So more to come on that one, but pretty much a wrap there. Fund 13, sustain and maintain. This is the new one, right? So we had the Fund
Y-
12, sustain. This is an intro,
Yeah,
right?
this one, I'll be submitting it this month. Now that we have kind of like a plan of what all spaces we'd be like going forward with, I think it's the perfect time to like submit this. So I'll be submitting in the next 2 to 3 days.
Thank you. And yeah, Mix and I just wanted to get going with the Go PBL, and we'll run today's tech stand up as an experiment. I have a which spaces proposal to bring for approval next week, just in terms of funding that work. That's up here. Which spaces? I made it January because what I'll ask for next week is that we go retroactively, get Newman and Harsha paid for facilitating the driver mapping workshop in January, and then any facilitation that's happened since then up to now. And so yeah, we've got things on the calendar, but we'll talk about funding them and approving that next week. And that would come out of this budget. Any other thoughts on sustain and maintain F13? Scott?
If somebody were interested or so inclined to be interested and want to help out on some of these proposals, would they just reach out to the people who are listed under the proposal?
That's a great place to start. Or yeah, just register your interest right here, right? This is kind of like our all hands on deck meeting for Gimbalabs, right? So if you got questions about getting involved in any of these, I think there's always space for that on this meeting. What are you thinking?
You don't have
Sorry.
to say. You don't have
No,
to say.
no. It was Marlo. Like Marlo's always piqued my interest, even back in the day. So, and I know you said like it's kind of died down as far as the development or they want to go a different direction or whatever. But it's since they're going a different direction, like I'm interested. Like I don't know if I have the technical skills or not, but I'm certainly interested.
Awesome. Awesome. And that's, I think, one of the things we've learned from the PPBL maintainers work is that in putting a course together, it's really helpful to have people at different levels of technical capacity because to write a clear and useful course, right? You can't have just a bunch of devs. They're not going to say everything right. So it's really good to have that. So yeah, people who span both can have a foot in both worlds. I think that's priceless, especially for something like Marlowe, where the general idea is still to get financial professionals access to Cardano, right? Without all the technical stuff. So that'll be an interesting one. Jump into Dandelion Light.
Oh, dandelion.
Yes. Well, tomorrow we have another meeting. I made some concepts for a governance site, and I'm currently in the process of implementing the user interface. I have the tooling is already done, so I just have to connect the bits, and yeah, it's up here at dandelion.m2tech.nl. And yeah, at the moment I'm working on it here locally and moving on to the Cardano decentralized server APIs, where I want to just do one query, like query tip or something, returns the value you need. And then from that, we just invite people to add to the list. I think that would be a fair process because it's like if it's a random query during the day one, it doesn't take a lot of effort, but you can see, oh, it's actually up during that day. If you have 80% in a month, you get added to the transaction. And well, I hope that to make that all automatic. So
It's awesome. Good, good, good. I would be interested in, the 6 to 18 month time frame of thinking about whether people can earn an Andamio credential for having Dandelion running, right? And that can be a way of people providing evidence or even getting access to that portal. And we can talk about those SDKs.
this may be a good time to ask you a question because we have the education part has an Andamio part in it as well. So
I think we can set it up today. Yeah, I think we're ready to go on making sure that the game changer instance course is live. And then we can look at that same process for making sure. Is there any Dandelion content written yet, or is that just
no, but
yeah,
yeah, I think I could write that pretty quickly.
awesome.
But yeah, we have some funds available depending on, I don't know, we didn't discuss any cost to it
Right.
for getting an instance for Dandelion education, but you know.
Awesome.
The funds left will be available for people to do. It's not like
Right.
we can discuss this Friday. Yeah, who wants to do it or maybe has already the knowledge. There's so much.
Mark,
There's enough work. So I
Yeah.
have actually not enough time. So if
and
anyone wants to help,
and
there's funds available.
and you're having meetings on Fridays?
Yeah, it's 1400. And you can find the agenda, what we're going to discuss in Notion. So
Okay,
just
cool.
go to that thing and you see the open button. If you open it, you will be seeing all the meeting notes also from previous meeting.
Ah, look at that.
Beautiful. Beauty. Yeah. So anybody can find this.
Yeah,
That's
Very
cool.
cool. Did Gabriel come to that meeting?
yeah. He will.
Awesome.
I think he's been several times. He
Great.
has already a dandelion node running, so
Damn right he
he's
does.
ahead of a lot of guys. So he
That's
will
great.
be in that list uh, in the list of servers first, I think.
Awesome. 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 Great news. Thanks. Yeah, amazing and great idea. Here's another emergent best practice. We can all aspire to keeping organized notes like this. We don't have to like institute anything overnight, but that's a really nice goal to get to this point where all this stuff is accessible to everybody.
It's actually pretty easy because I'm talking anyway, and I need to follow the agenda. And then when
Yeah,
it's like I started typing, I automatically it's like, oh, I'm keeping notes already. I didn't really think about it.
that's cool. Yep. Any,
And
any
then,
questions? Oh, sorry, Newman.
well, yeah, I'm also trying to figure out how to like get notes in there. So you just created another page in Notion and then link to it there.
Yeah, and in
Okay.
fact, if you don't know about this shortcut key, if I just type slash page, it makes a new
Uh-huh.
page.
Okay, but then how do you go back to the page that you just were?
When I go back to it, the link is there. The shortcut key for going back is Command square bracket,
What? Oh,
Control square bracket.
Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
So
I,
go
I use
into
that
the
one all
Hello
the
World
time. So
page.
navigate right, forward, back, forward, back. I'm just
uh,
holding
was
Command on a Mac
it
and
was
pressing
a
square brackets.
frustration of
Okay.
mine.
Yeah.
Fault.
So the workflow is once again, it's slash page. Here's my new page. And then I press Command or Control square bracket to go back to where I made that page.
Okay. Okay, cool. Um, I was doing this fascinates me. And I was trying to do it in the tasks, and I'm like, oh, I just kept making all these subtasks and then putting
Yeah,
comments in there, and they just kind of go away. I actually really like this because it doesn't break the linked pages model. It's just like here's a page, I can get that. But even though those tasks are just little pages, it's just I don't know for whatever reason this might do. But very, very good, and yeah, I like it there because it's just very clear. Like, oh, there are all the ones, and you're gonna put one for tomorrow's um in there, agenda
Yeah,
21 February. Yeah, yeah, there we go. Yeah.
I
So
still should do
awesome.
that.
awesome.
I'm not the fastest with usually on the same day, but nobody is. I'm not stopping anybody from making an agenda and set something he wants to discuss there.
They're just clamoring on a Saturday morning to do some dandelion setup.
I will, from based on what I know, and I don't mean to take up time, but the I have always thought it's kind of like a student learning target, or like actually my girlfriend came in to the desk and I was trying to get that Cardano node running, and she just saw the matrix of all the stuff scanning on the thing. I have since I knew computers, since I was a teeny kid, I've always wanted to have a box running and be like, oh yeah, there are people on there doing things that I barely understand. And yeah, you can turn it on and you see all this gobbledygook, you see the matrix, and it's just like, yeah. Anyway,
A really good
it's just one of
feeling the
the
first
fire
time you
tick.
see your node syncing. That's a really nice thing. That's yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. So I think that's based on what I know about Dandelion, I think that's on the table. And so yeah, and I really do appreciate all the work that you're doing. Your Discord channel is really good. This Notion project is really good. So kudos to you and that whole crew. Yeah, I'm really stoked that you come every week. I just want to show some appreciation to you, Martin.
We had a very good CBIA meeting, YouTube thing. He brought StreamYard. It's like
Yeah.
a streaming platform for YouTube, and you could put on subtitles with icons, and it just looked crazy professional. I was like, this is more professional than we are, man.
Oh,
Time for
Eh,
proposal. Let's upgrade.
Yeah, Lucas made, yeah, you should ask him. Check out that YouTube thing on CBIA.
We
The
ran
way, at least if you're not interested in Game Changer, the way it's done is great.
nice. No, we used to use Restream and the integration broke and I just haven't had time to recreate it. But if anybody wants a budget to upgrade the broadcasting infrastructure of these Gimbalabs meetings, that's a great proposal to write.
There is a cap on 10 people being on the stream with
Okay.
StreamYard. So that's a thing.
okay.
But
So
yeah, you
that
have
would
buttons for layouts, and you can make people, yeah, can put people backstage, front stage. Maybe not for this type of meetings, it's not great, but for YouTube stuff,
And
yes.
not to put my negative hat on, but when Google buys something and starts using it, it's generally just a precursor for them to shut it down in a couple of
Oh,
years.
they're
So
ruining it.
just, I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to ruin it. And I'm sure that that won't happen with this, but
No, they
but
bought
yeah,
it, but it was good today, or yesterday.
there
Also.
you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I still miss Google Reader. I still haven't gotten over that one.
RIP, you know, yeah.
Bastards.
It's
Uh,
okay. It's still there. It's still there. It's the mice the mushroom is not just there's the web is still alive in our hearts.
that's right.
In our hearts.
Cool. So that's that one. This is more of an inflow than an outflow, right? Where Gimbal Labs is not paying. Let me just move this over to here.
Oh,
There
yeah.
we
I see
go.
the inflows and outflows are starting to work. Yeah,
But it's
that's cool.
confusing, right? Like, because there's no expectation that anybody working on the Dandelion Light project owes any of this to Gimbal Labs, right? So
Uh,
it wouldn't make
yeah.
sense to like balance the books with these columns, but for now
Yeah.
we're not spending on this either. Notion is it's just still alive. So I check my credit card statement each month and reimburse once every 3 months or so. I just
Well,
fall behind on that. So I think I need to check when the last time I reimbursed for this was, but I'm excited that the next time I do it, it'll be via Andamio and people will be able to just see that there. Really easy to track.
and hey, just a little note on this because I love this. This is just one of my favorite things where the people listening that are contributing to Gimbal Labs, and in order to contribute to Gimbal Labs, they need a tool that pay is reimbursed by Gimbal Labs. There's something really humane and I'm wondering, and this could be kind of a temp check type of thing, is it's like, are there other accounts that we all use that
mm,
sustains our work that can be, should be, might be reimbursed by the Gimbal Labs Treasury? Because it's a small thing with a huge benefit without any kind of overhead. There's no like there's not, doesn't take any maintenance. It's just a credit card statement and a reimbursement. So, that being said, it's just something I'm looking out for, and maybe another proposal coming in that area. Or if there's like, oh no, that shouldn't be, then I'm open to discussing, at a time.
Yeah, Adrian, what do you think?
Does it make sense to use Andamio for reimbursement?
Good question.
Oh,
Oh
as
yeah,
opposed to,
any
yeah.
objections to that? I mean,
Yeah, I
I
mean
mean, we kind of just did. I
it's
mean,
for
I was
one
reimbursed.
specific person, so don't know.
That would be interesting. How would that look? So it would be like
But if
the
I
task
claim
would be to,
it, you can claim it.
pardon?
right. Well, that's where prerequisites come in, right? There would maybe be some like admin prerequisite. Yeah. Caesar and Andrew and I were just talking about this yesterday, right? Like there were two tasks in the Andamio development work that they're starting to contribute to. And one of them had a little bit more ADA in it, right? And so the the only way it worked is for the two of them to say, well, I'm not going to steal your task. But that's kind of the idea here. And I always go back to that first paragraph of the Hydra paper, right? The Hydra paper describes how when you drill down to a certain level, hopefully you don't need blockchain anymore, right? Or put another way, right? If I need to use a blockchain to establish financial trust with my son, something's wrong with my relationship, right? And so in a similar way, there's always a grain size after which you're going to rely on a high level of trust in a small group of people. And it's a matter of figuring out where that line is.
Hmm.
But yeah,
I'm looking up.
I wouldn't want to expose my reimbursement for Notion so that somebody else could just take it. So we need to make sure
That
access is
doesn't
set
make
up
sense.
correctly.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah, and we don't want to turn in. We're not trying to build anything like Expensify. So
Okay.
yeah, so maybe if there's objections to me reimbursing this way for Notion, I don't have to use Ondamio for that. I'm actually interested to let's try it once, but if it feels wrong a few months from now, let's do it differently.
Okay.
And yeah, let's bring if people do have thoughts on other tools that Gimbalabs can fund, let's bring proposals for that. I think that's a great question, Newman. And yeah, could imagine justifying, I don't know, Miro, Zoom, Discord, whatever.
Yeah. Um, yeah. That's sort of in my mind. Maybe AI, some AI tools,
Hmm.
or
Save
if
money.
there's, I mean, think about the people that have really crappy internet connections. So a couple of bucks a month could bump them up into a better and steadier thing, especially if they're constantly presenting. That might be something. Um,
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yep, that's an example of right, high impact, low cost, and that's an example we do want to set in this era of like global Cardano governance, right?
yeah.
How can you make a huge difference with 15 ADA?
Right, exactly. And sometimes those little tools, really can be, yeah, they can be, really make a big impact.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah,
it's cool. Last one on the list, Mix is in here to represent, but there is a Catalyst proposal funded in Fund 13 to build the DNS marketplace. This is in partnership with Blink Labs. It's built upon Handshake. Adrian, anything worth sharing on this right now?
No, I don't think there's something to share.
Cool. More to come on that one. And we might even put this one in the planning phase. It's not fully in progress yet. So let me bump it back to that. And we'll know when it's time to move it. All right, cool. So thanks. That's our monthly review. That took about an hour. But thanks for diving into that. And I'm glad we have a public record of this. Any last questions before I change what I'm sharing on the screen?
I really love this. This has so helpful to me. Now I know what's going on in Gimbalabs, and that calms my nervous system. You know, it just in a way, it really is helpful. So I'm glad that we're sticking to this last Thursday of the month. We just take the hour to go through. People get to chance. I get to hear people like I just heard from Kevin and Martin and you and Adrian, and like it's good. I feel like I know what Gimbal Labs is and what I'm participating, how I'm participating. It's great.
There's a dramatic difference between, the number of people in this meeting has fluctuated between like 9 and 12 people over the course of this conversation. And obviously, we're not talking about millions of ADA right here. So, in terms of scale, there's a dramatic difference between what we're doing right here and what's going on at like global level Cardano budgeting conversations. But I would like to start those conversations of, okay, well, how do we bridge the gap? How does what we're doing here maybe help inform what might work with a group of 90 people and then 900 people and then eventually globally? But this is what personally I want to see from these budgeting conversations, right? You can't start from the abstract numbers. Let's throw 3 million in that column. Why? I don't know. It feels good, right? That's
Mhm.
not it, right? But if we can bubble up from smaller groups towards that centralized budget, how it works, other people can do this, right? And how do we share that? How do we help teach people? What kind of facilitation is there? Are people willing to do this work? Steve said at the beginning of this meeting, people are finding out that governance is hard. Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully an outcome of that is people are willing to give things like this a try at a small scale, because if this is happening, right? Imagine if there were 250 different weekly meetings like this one globally, and each one had 9 or 12 people in it. What kind of fabric would that help us weave globally? And how would those changes bubble up? So I think we can start getting a little bit more vocal and using the tools we have to suggest that, hey, here's a way to start practicing. And there's nothing sexy about this meeting, right? It's not, it doesn't have, right? It doesn't have all of the fanfare, but this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. And it makes me feel good. Just Newman, I agree with you. Like this feels really good just to have this like high level view and to know that we'll do this again in a month.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And iterating over it, I think will improve it. Like we just saw how Martin does his meeting minutes and agendas.
Bingo.
Um, as we give those reports, there'll be better questions. Like maybe there's a standard thing, or maybe there's some habit that comes up about it. Yeah, I think we are experimenting with the emergent nature of these types of systems and networks, because that's what we are. Gimbal Labs is a network of all these projects, and this is our nexus. This is our project board, and it's just, for instance, just changing that one little thing from inflows to outflows. Um, like there was, 6 months ago we made a little change. Like we went to owner and source, and like those make a difference, and we're reaping some reward. So that's cool.
Steve, what do you think?
I just it just occurs to me that what's happening here is kind of doing what I wish was being done, with the larger community. Like before this started, this 1694 and all this process since Intersect came into existence, you know, it was always to talk about minimum viable governance. And you haven't heard that fucking word in 8 months, 10 months, 12 months, right? I mean, like think about that. Think about that, right? All of a sudden, those ideas of minimum viable governance are just not applicable because this is serious and we have to institute processes like we know from the old-fashioned world, and people just go with it, right? And this is what's really kind of disturbing to me about it. But like what we're doing here, and I say we just because you let me come to the meetings, right? Y'all are doing right now is really developing something that can scale. It can scale up and it can scale down. And to me, in my mind, that's what's so interesting about the Barcelona experiment, right? If you can actually do this thing that's been created with Andamio, with the processes that we've been using here in open spaces, if you can do that for a community that's literally millions of people, that's proving something that all this bullshit in Cardano governance is not doing, not even close to doing. So I think we're ahead of the game on the edge of the envelope.
It's hard work.
Yep.
And with that said, let's go take a look at some new toys now. So we've got this list of projects. We know that some of these have funding. Um, a huge personal milestone for me was yesterday I finally emptied out the old Gimbalabs prototype of Andamio, the treasury we were using in the middle of last year. A few people had some interactions with that. But the whole point there was just to like try playing with something that was half built. So all the funds from there and all the funds that we've received from Catalyst over the last few months, I'm holding those in a browser wallet at this moment, and there's currently like 96,000 ADA in that wallet. Okay. And that's where we get to now distribute those funds into some Andamio projects. So let's take a look at what this means. In case you haven't heard, Andamio is now live on mainnet, and we've had our first few transactions ready to go. The first few access tokens have been minted, and minting is live. And we can do if anybody needs help with that step, that individual step of creating an access token, we could do that at the end of this call. But I wanted to give you a high level view of where we're going with this. Because initially, word got out that Andamio was a learning management system, and that's really not the whole story. Andamio is really about projects like the ones we were just talking about. And so, what's an example of a project? Well, how about Andamio platform development, right? Here's a project that people can contribute to, and Andrew and Caesar already have. Or Gimbalabs governance stuff, right? So for example, there's one task here, and you can see the rewards have already been claimed. Steve made the first ever transaction on Andamio mainnet a couple days ago, getting
Oh
reimbursed for
man,
his trip to the DREP debate, right? He even
nice.
uploaded a photo, which is not visible from this view right now.
That was really fun. That was really funny because Chase, well, you got a photo from there, and I was like, I don't know, and I found the one photo, and I think I took it by
No, there
accident.
is a place. Can I see that photo over here? Oh no, I'm in the wrong browser. Is that the problem? Give me 1 second. I need to make sure I have the right
Love it.
browser open. I have a pre-prod browser and a mainnet browser and kind of all over
Exactly.
the place. This one should connect. Yeah? Yeah, that's the one. Let's try that again. If I go in here. Yeah, look, Steve added a photo. He said I was there. That was his evidence. He sent a picture. Right. Now,
Nah.
is
That's
it is
great.
it possible to be more rigorous than this? You're damn right it is. But here's going back to that family thing, right? We all know Steve went. And he came back and he presented out. And we're going to learn together what kind of evidence is acceptable. And this is going to go for both contributions that have some ADA reward attached to them, like this one, right? Or to learning opportunities. Now, what's the connection? On any project, people can establish the ability to join that project and earn rewards by completing prerequisites. So you can see that Steve is an enrolled contributor to this project. And that means that when there are new tasks here, right? Currently, there's nothing else to commit to, but he's going to be able to commit to tasks in this list. The way he became able to do that is he fulfilled this prerequisite. I feel bad saying it. Steve's a level 1 contributor at Gimbalabs. We all know that's not true. He's at least maybe a level 2.5 or something. But we have this ability to create precise rules for how somebody can become a contributor to any project. Those rules are, to simplify a little bit, those rules are encoded in a policy ID, right? But nobody's ever going to hold this token. All Steve needs is to hold a single Andamio token. And once he's met these requirements, he has the ability to say, I've got those requirements represented by this policy ID, and as such, I can make a commitment to a task listed here. So, what is the requirement to be Gimbalabs level 1? Well, just as an example, we created a very quick course the other day, just as a place to start. And I love having places to start because they give people something to push back against and say, hey, this would be better if X and Y and Z. So my goal here is to get that conversation going today. Here's the Getting Started with Gimbalabs course in its current state. So far, it has 2 modules, 101 and 102. Each module only has 2 learning targets. Let's look at them. Module 101. I can access the Gimbalabs public calendar and I can join a meeting. Module number 2. I can access the Gimbalabs public project board and I can draft a new project proposal. How do you guys feel about that being like the minimum barrier to entry? If somebody drops by an open spaces meeting and they draft a new project proposal, can we give them basic access to start committing to some tasks here?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Because, well, to draft a new project proposal, you'll need a Notion account.
Mhm.
So,
So I can draft a new proposal as in they're supposed to draft a proposal before they become level 1?
Well, yeah, and this can be changed, right? But my logic here was that's what we're asking in order to give people a Notion account, right? So the first time somebody drafts a proposal, typically they've either been doing it with the help of somebody who's already here. Newman's guided a few people through that process already. Or, for example, like Demi did a couple weeks ago, they just use our project template on Google Docs. And the idea here is we don't want to just be like paying for Notion accounts if people aren't showing some minimum level of commitment.
That makes sense. But I just think if someone has drafted a new proposal and presented it, that means they've already come to the open space. So only one would probably do, I think.
That's also a good point, right? So we might not actually need to include 101 as a prereq. We might say, well, if you at least got to this point, and I agree with that, right? Like there's some people who just can't make it to this open spaces meeting. It's not a good time for them, right? But even that, in my opinion, I want to force those conversations, right? I want to get to the point where somebody says, hey, I want to join in, but I can't make it to your open spaces. And the moment we hear somebody say something like that, it's like, all right, well, let's find another time, right? And the higher the stakes are, right? Right now, what are the stakes? Oh, if I miss the meeting live, I can watch it on YouTube, no big deal. But if we're saying, well, you got to do this so that you can commit to tasks and earn rewards, that might be a little bit more of an incentive for somebody to speak up and say, hey, I can't make it to your open spaces meeting, right? And this, again, this is how governance works as well. If we create conditions that get people to ask for the things they need, that drives progress.
Yeah. And the need could be, hey, look, I'm in the Asian time zone. I can't make it on those things. And then it becomes a real uh it becomes an actual obstacle, not just a theoretical something that's nice to have. It moves from nice to have to needs to have.
Bingo.
And then creativity happens because you've got these real nice constraints. And you're just like, okay, well, what exactly do you need? And blah blah blah. Goes from there. Yeah, beautiful.
So yeah, that's my philosophy. There are other philosophies, right? And let's make sure that we all share with each other when we're thinking through these things. I would like to create conditions, right, where we get to those, like Newman just named it, need to have. Um, so this is a start,
It's like, yeah. Um, okay. Yep.
right?
I
So
might need some help going through
oh
it
yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm
Well, this is
yeah.
this is we're still building our mental model of how this thing works, right? And I believe deeply that Andamio has the potential to be a very intuitive tool, but there's some new patterns to introduce, right? But I'd like to get it to the point where it does feel intuitive, and we've got some work to do to get there. But what do we have so far? Here's a place to start. Is it likely that we're going to want other modules in this course so people could be level 2 or level 3 contributors? I think so. Is it likely we'll want to name those prerequisites differently than just level 1, 2, 3? Sure, we can come up with adorable names for those with time, so we can move in that direction. And the other thing that's not done here is the lessons are not actually written. It's just a learning target, okay? And the key thing to recognize here is lessons are optional, right? We can write lessons when they're helpful, and I think we should write quick lessons here. But when we do, we don't have to write a book about this, right? How many sentences do we have to write to help somebody access the Gimbalabs public calendar? One or two?
One.
Right.
Click the
Yeah.
link.
Right. This
Yeah.
is this is not about creating bureaucracy. It's not about creating endless documentation. It's about helping people do this thing, right? And we want to help people do this thing in as few words as possible. Similar down here, right? I can access the Gimbalabs public project board. I was wondering whether to include the word Notion in this learning target, but ultimately decided not to use it because
Mhm.
that would make, right, then it's not future proof. There might be a future where we move to a different tool other than Notion, but this learning target would still be the same. For right now, it would just be a link to Notion. And then same thing, maybe from the project proposal one, this one might take, I don't know, 4 or 5 sentences where we say, look, here's the template. You can find the public view here. But maybe we even want to make accessible a Google Doc that has the proposal template so that anybody without a Notion account can write their first proposal. These are all details that are ahead of us. The lessons are not even written yet, but we have the assignments, and this gives us the ability to make a credential. When it comes to assignments, even these don't necessarily have to have much on them. So when Steve committed to this assignment the other day, what was the description? On Notion, right? It's not fleshed out before this is ready for new people to onboard. The work is ahead of us of fleshing out these descriptions and building those supporting materials. But even without a good description, we can still use the credentialing interface to say, look, I know that Steve drafted a new project proposal, right? Back to that family relationship thing. I watched Steve deliver a proposal presentation. I know we were all there when we approved him. And so I hope it's okay that using personal experience, I vouched for Steve. I said, yeah, I know that he did this thing, and I'm going to approve that assignment. Any questions about that? Right. So on the very small scale, as we get up and running, it's going to feel a little bit kind of time consuming to get everybody in and get people to fulfill prerequisites for stuff they did 3 or 6 months ago. But over time, we're going to build it up and make it more publicly accessible, build out the documentation so we can move from this like high trust vouching atmosphere to to something more robust and more ready for public view. So this is why courses exist in the first place. And once you finish those prerequisites, the UI changes. Right now it says I am not yet qualified for either of these projects, and that's correct. I don't have the credential to be qualified, but if I have done, for example, those two modules that we just showed, which we know are the prereqs for this project, then I would be able to enroll in this project and make a commitment just like Steve did. Any questions about that? I know I'm not demoing that right now, but I just kind of want to share the flow so you can start thinking about it. Okay, and the reason I want everybody to think about this is now taking what we just did on the Notion board, we have several funded projects. We have the Asteria work, we have the ongoing PPBL maintainers work, I got to think about where like the Notion reimbursement would even go and if it's a good idea to do that. And then there's a whole bunch of other projects coming online soon, right? Marlowe will be here soon. We're going to distribute those catalyst funds by this mechanism. The Apollo work from Go, and the handshake work that's starting up, all of those will have projects here, and all of those will be visible from a landing page for the Gimbalabs organization, right? So you'll be able to see projects and courses that are in progress, and you'll be able to see the names of prerequisites and which courses are required. So it's going to get easier and easier for people to find their way. Hey, how do I get started here? I want to jump into that project. How do I do it? So a lot of UI still to refine here, but this is the basic idea. And anybody who is the source or the owner of a project with funds, your next step would be to make sure that we have the project here and think about what the prerequisite should be. Okay. Can we all take that as homework and work asynchronously over the next week, like between now and next week's open spaces, to think about what the prereqs should be for the Asteria project?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same thing for PPBL maintainers. I'll bring that, Andrew, to the rest of the crew there too. Okay, but we just need to figure out, yeah. And again, in this early day, it's going to feel like jumping through hoops for those of us who are already here. But the idea is this is built for growing the team of people in the future who are contributing to this work. And so I hope it's okay to like to jump through a few hoops, making sure that you earn those credentials that you probably already have in reality. I think that's far enough to go for today because we're at time. And we do have another meeting to get to. That meeting's going to happen right here in this space. But I'm going to stop recording and start recording again. So we'll close out this one. This is Gimbalabs Open Spaces. We meet on Thursdays at 14:30 UTC. You can find a link to this meeting at gimbalabs.com/calendar. And like we talked about a few minutes ago, we believe that we're building small versions of things that are going to scale, and that's what we intend to do. So if you want to join us in that work, if you want to practice starting to scale out some of these patterns, building courses, building documentation, and building projects for people to jump into, maybe this is a place for you. And if this time doesn't work for you, we hope that you'll let us know. because there's an appetite to make sure that we're meeting the needs of people. We have a driver for creating spaces where anybody can get involved. So looking forward to hearing from anybody. Look us up, and to everybody who attended, thanks for being here. See you soon.
I'm gonna jump. There's a budget space I'm gonna sit in on, so see you guys soon. Thanks.
Hey, Steve.
Sweet. Thanks, Steve.